Welcome back to Deck Check, where you better check yourself before you deck yourself. We are back for the 20th episode of the Off Meta podcast. I'm Ganesh.
And I'm Samurai Dancer. Today we're setting our appointment with the bad doctor and looking to slice into XEROX Yawgmoth, Thran Physician. Welcome to Off Meta, where the brews that are hot shoot their shot.
In this show, we focus on the fascinating off meta cEDH decks people haven't seen yet, like the spooky Yawgmoth Thran Physician. We'll have new episodes coming out this holiday season.
Off Meta is not responsible for the tournament results of decks and cards mentioned on Off Meta. If there's a brew you'd like us to take a look at, or you'd like to appear in the show itself, just let us know in the Discord or in the comments down below. Now, don't forget to like and subscribe this video.
First up, we have a really fast section for off meta news, where we are going to shout out one of our off meta faves, Gold Sabertooth. What did he do recently, Samurai? Why are we shouting him out?
Well, not only is he just an awesome guy, Gold Sabertooth this past weekend went undefeated at the Play to Win cEDH tournament at Cloud City on Plagon, the Starfish. Actually, I think he's called something like the Beach Lord? Lord of the Beach. There we go. What
That
a
is
cute
really funny.
starfish.
You look at that card and you're like, is this a cEDH commander? We might have to get him back on the show sometime. In
I look
other
at that
news,
card. It's so cute. Look at it. He's
it is
on a sea
cute.
turtle.
It is a pretty cute card. But yeah, in other news, we have not been having off meta every week. That is because I am going through a bit of a school situation where I'm having to study quite a bit. So apologies for that, but we have not quit. There is still going to be content coming out, just maybe not quite as frequently as every week, since it was a really big time commitment for me. But without further ado, let's go ahead and hop right into Yawgmoth. Are you ready to take your cEDH gameplay to the next level? Join my coaching program and learn from a proven champion. With many tournament wins, I offer personalized coaching tailored to your deck and goals. Enjoy ongoing support, gameplay reviews, practice games, and individual or group lessons. Don't just compete, conquer. You can contact me anytime through the Discord link below. Alright, we are here with Strix. So, would you mind telling us a bit about yourself? What is your name or username? How long you've been playing? Your favorite decks? And your general location in the world?
Yeah, hello. So glad to be here. Yeah, the internet knows me as Strix. My name is Chris. I'm mainly known for my work over at the Yuriko Discord. We've been working on Yuriko for 6 years now.
Wow.
You know, back in the day, it was a commander that was seen as a casual commander only. You know, I believe it had around about an 8% win rate in 2018. And yeah, we grew that from scratch because we saw something in it. We saw something in Yawgmoth too, and yeah, very happy to talk about it today. I've been playing Commander since, I want to say 2010 is when I learned casual. I was playing for about 6 months, 5 to 6 months. Some friends showed me down here in Australia, a place called Geelong. And yeah, that store actually started playing for boosters. And I mean, I'm not going to, there was no tournaments back then. It wasn't even called Commander back then, but we were playing competitive pretty much from about 2011 onwards, playing for boosters, trying to take it seriously, really trying to win. My first commander was Teferi, Mage of Zalfa. Teferi pool it was. So,
Oh, the lockout
yeah,
deck. Yeah.
great stuff. But yeah, so since I've been playing comp, I want to say I've been playing comp since about 2011, trying to win, taking EDH seriously. Yeah. As
Very
far as
good.
my favorite decks are concerned, yeah, it's got to be Yuriko. That's I'm the owner of the Yuriko Discord, and owner of the Yawgmoth Discord as well. Both have been a labor of love working on them over the years. Yeah, so pretty much I fell in love with Yuriko in 2018. Rest is history. When Yawgmoth come out, I didn't think anything too of it, to be honest. a gentleman by the name of Coldwind got me onto it, and I saw something in it that I had that same feeling, this casual commander that, given enough time, if Wizards prints the right things, there's serious potential here. And
Yeah.
yeah, and now we're here. Yeah. I am someone known, when they brew with a lot more resiliency than the average player, I suppose. There's this acknowledgement that 75% of games off the cuff you are expected to lose. So there is always that 3v1, but your win rate is only 25%. And so
Right.
building to lose, building when you are going to lose, is not a bad game, not a bad brewing decision. So there is a resiliency with Yawgmoth that I am very excited to talk about today.
Of course, yes. So how have your tournament results been with the deck, or other tournament results other pilots have had with Yawgmoth? Has there been anything good happening recently?
Yeah. So we got so 2020 Commander comes out. It's casual. It's people tried to make it work.
Mhm.
They tried to make it like a quick shell. Reanimator, and we tried Adnors. We tried lots of different stuff, and it
Right.
always just felt, why would you bring Yawgmoth when you can pick Crick?
Mhm.
And that's true. It was true for a very long time. But lately, a lot of new stuff has come out that has just changed the way that uh, we should be looking at the commander, I believe. Um, I mean, look, I'm biased. I own the commander. I play the commander. I enjoy the commander.
Right.
But the really recent tournament results are really starting to speak for themselves. I think Brewer's Advantage makes everything win once, but we're starting to see some consistency here. Recently, one of the moderators in the Discord, uh, he got top four. He got to the finals in a 32-man tournament. Um, I played in one of the Chaos tournaments. I ended up getting about 25% win rate in the Swiss, and not terribly impressive. But that was my first tournament taking Yawgmoth seriously. Because again, this is a commander that I didn't view as competitive. Just straight up,
Right.
I don't think it was competitive, but it needed the right things to be printed. And had it had enough time in the oven, I needed to find out. And I got 25% win rate in the Chaos, and I thought, and that was a few months back, and I thought to myself, there's something here. There is really something here. It's doing something that it's bringing something of relevance that don't think I've seen anywhere else at this stage, which is strange. I mean, it's rare that this happens. These monocolor commanders, they bring something to the table that makes them genuinely worth dropping other colors for.
Right.
I'm not sure if Yawgmoth is there, but I think it might be. It might be really getting there. But anyway, I had a tournament a couple weeks back. It was Tough Mulligan's 500, and
Mhm.
yeah, did fantastic in there.
Very good.
I believe I came 11th,
Oh,
11th out of
nice.
54
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
players.
Very good.
Yeah, so it was good. I'm sad I didn't get top 10, but like I'm seeing consistency. Last night, literally last night, a guy named Di Weezer, I'm pretty sure is his name. He's been a resident in the Yawgmoth Discord for a while, and he actually top 16'd as well. Yeah, and that was a 62-man. So
Yeah,
yeah,
like once you hit
13th.
like top 16, it kind of becomes a a bit of a luck situation, a little bit.
To a degree, I think
Yeah.
both in Weezer's situation and mine, we're in fourth position, so it's a bit rough from the get go. I mean, you have a default 18% win rate before commanders are selected, so it can get a bit tricky. But yeah, I'm seeing consistency here, and I think it's good we have a chat. Mm.
Yeah. Um, so before we get too deep into what all this sort of stuff, and I'm really excited for this episode, by the way, because it's one of the most interesting ones we've had, and it's going to be really interesting to actually talk about all the different cards and how kind of each one, as it got printed, added to the deck. Um, to the point that we're probably me and Samurai are going to be uh taking our foot off the gas a little bit, it'll be mostly you probably talking about the
What to
deck.
talk about?
But yeah, why
Yeah,
don't you tell us what Yawgmoth Thran Physician actually does? Like, what's his
of course.
for this podcast? So there are people listening that won't know his mana cost stuff like that.
Of course. So Yawgmoth
Actually,
is
could you not tell
yeah,
people what he does? Like, please. This is like 90% of how I win is people don't read this card. He's got
Brewer's
like
Advantage.
four, right? He's got like 4 lines of text, and they all are relevant. Like, he's got 3 abilities, and no one reads anything about him when you play him. And
Yeah,
if we
yeah.
could
I
just
mean,
keep
unless I
him a
played modern.
mystery,
Yeah. Well, look, I'll say this, okay? Brewer's Advantage is a thing. I think Brewer's Advantage, and for those folks at home, Brewer's Advantage is bringing a non-meta commander to a tournament, trying to sneak in those cheeky wins with something that people have no idea what's happening. I think Brewer's Advantage is currently something we are affected by. I think it is good. However, there is something kind of fine about telling people exactly how we win, exactly how the deck operates. This is a very resilient deck. It's quite hard to stop over and over. So
Mhm.
I think it's good that people find out. And look, and for those folks who are listening that don't want to play this, but just want to learn of it, to level up, learn about all the commanders in the format. Yeah, it could be an interesting listen. But so pretty much Yawgmoth, he is a 4 mana commander,
Mhm.
2 generic, two black,
Mhm.
and it is a 2/4 legendary creature. He is a human. God, you're testing me now. Human
Human
cleric.
cleric.
Yeah, it's funny, you drop the Cabinet of Souls. You always name human because the humans in the brew. You never say cleric. That's
Right.
the forgettable half. But yeah, human cleric.
Mhm.
And I believe, yeah. So pretty much it has protection from humans, not
Yep.
irrelevant. Human is the most common creature type in cEDH for the record. So there's a lot of little things that just cannot get through. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, protection
Noted.
from
He cannot deflecting swap to himself. That has come up a couple of times.
yes. If someone deflecting SWATs, they cannot select it to itself. Also clones, if they were to clone it, or gilded, oh, well, not gilded drake, but if they were to clone it, and then because I have seen this happen before, especially pre-bans when clones are a bit more rampant. Yeah, the Yawgmoth can't target Yawgmoth, so it's a bit of a Mexican standoff. They delete each other's boards, but nothing, not one another. Kind of funny.
Yeah.
He
So
also blocks pretty well.
for those that
Yeah,
are
blocks very well.
unfamiliar with what protection actually does, so since Yawgmoth has protection from humans, it means he can't be targeted, equipped, destroyed by, dealt damage to, and then there's probably like one or two other things that cannot happen if it's a human, and he himself is a human. So notably, you cannot activate his ability and target himself or um, other things of that nature from human based sources. Notably, he's an amazing Timna blocker because you know, even if they pump it or something, you can just chump block and it doesn't get through. Right.
Yeah,
Anyway,
but that's the thing about Yawgmoth. It's not like they have many attackers in the first place, right? If you're doing your job right.
you're right, right. It's gonna die.
Yeah.
I actually got an acronym for you guys to remember for protection. It's called DEBT.
Yes.
DEBT.
Mhm.
Damage,
Class.
enchanting, equipping, blocking, and targeting. Cannot do
That's
any of
it.
that.
Right.
That's the one I was taught 15, 14 years ago, and it's still
Right?
valid today. Yeah, it's good.
Getting taught on the school ground by someone in like a grade above me. He's like, "Oh yeah, if you ever need to know, it's called debt." And I'm like, "I'm
Yeah.
sure I'll remember this 20 years later, right? Like this will definitely be relevant."
Damage,
Oh no.
enchanting, blocking, target. Okay, cool.
Yeah. The enchantment part's not so relevant. There's no human tribal enchantments to my knowledge, but yeah. But look, moving on. Yeah, so Yawgmoth, the main reason that makes him unique, I suppose you could say, is this next activation. So
Mhm.
this is pay 1 life, sacrifice another creature, keyword another creature, uh, put a neg 1 counter on up to 1 creature, and draw a card. So this is the crux of why you would pick the commander. It is, I'm not going to say a Bowmaster's in the command zone, despite it feeling like that sometimes. I'm not going to say a Draneth Magistrate in the command zone, despite it feeling like that sometimes if you politic well. But there is this real element of creature control inbuilt in the commander. The card draw is great. but the real interesting aspect of it is the neg1 counters that it distributes around. Yeah,
It
and
is like if you put Toxic Deluge, combined it with Necropotence, combined it with a Phyrexian Altar. You know, it's like it's all the best things of Phyrexia.
yeah, spot on. It's a lot of the utility of that activation is through the roof. It's something that a lot of people don't realize. It's that line of text that makes it not just tick, not just combo off, but it's that line of text that makes this commander interesting today and interesting in the next 3 years. I think as we get more tech, more toys to play with, I think it's going to become something very, very playable as an alternative. Is it better than Crick? I'm not so sure. Is it valid right now? Definitely. It's doing things. I mean, we'll chat about that later, but it's doing things that make it very, very valid, and it all starts with that activation there. But yeah, moving on to the last line of text, and this one is something that even the pilots, myself, I forget about. It's not relevant until it's relevant, and there was a round in Chaos. I ended up losing that round, but it became very valid. This last line of text. It is double black. So this is all instant speed. Double black, discard a card, proliferate. You're probably wondering how is this relevant? We don't really have any cards that we proliferate ourselves. It very rarely comes up. There is failed states where you are completely locked out of the game and your undies have counters on them, and sometimes you just need to pump them up into oblivion and swing at someone for 15 damage a turn. Very rare it comes up.
I think of a great aspect where that comes up. I'm looking at you, Mystic Remora. Looking at you, One Ring. Like, please die.
Good stuff. Yeah. So proliferating when a Mystic Remora is out, great stuff. You basically just killed their Mystic Remora. I know that black doesn't really have any cEDH tier enchantment removal, but if there's anything that can take out a fish, it's that ability. The other one, and you're probably wondering how I took out a player in Chaos. They had a One Ring. And they flew close to the sun, and I made them fly even closer. So sometimes it just works out. Sometimes there's just a lot of things on board that just happen to be proliferatable, and yeah, it becomes it surprises the pilot, I think, when it comes up. But when it comes up, it's something that you can take, an action you can take. Sometimes there's maybe some lands with some counters on them, or the newly spoiled 9 Lives Familiar, or it's just a lot of little value here and there. Some pilots they brew in a way where they add like Everflowing Chalice, that sort of stuff. Pay mana to put counters on this colorless signet, I suppose you could say, and proliferating it to make it grow just incidentally along the way. It is something that does come up if you're brewing in that way. Yeah, I know that a lot of Yawgmoths, like on the Discord, we got a section for proliferation. It's not competitive yet, but it is all experimental. A lot of room for brewing. Yeah, but that's the commander. Great stuff. Very defensive, very creature control-y, and you got access to a little bit of everything. And it's easily overlooked. But when you word it like this, you have access to a commander. So from the command zone, you have access to card draw, creature removal, a discard outlet, and a proliferator, and a life total protector that can get through on attacks against the most common creature type in the game. It starts to get a little bit interesting.
Yeah, I think that also really perfectly answers the first question we had, which was why play this deck. I think what you said there just blast that out of the water. Yeah, Samurai, you want to grab this next one?
If I may. Sorry, just to interject one last second.
Oh, yeah.
Why play this deck? There is one thing I will say about that.
Sure.
I was taught a very, very long time ago that in order for a commander to be quote-unquote cEDH, it has to be doing something of relevance that is unique and the best of its kind. Why play some random vanilla, Grixis commander when you can play Rogsai, right?
Right.
It's quicker, it's more efficient, it's it's only upgrades, right? It's doing something that gives it validity on the cEDH scene. The real answer to why play this deck, it's because it is doing stuff that I have not seen in the meta yet. I have not seen a commander with this much creature control do the things that it can do. And we'll get into that a little later, but yeah, it really comes down to silences. The ability to win through silences, the ability to win through rule of laws, it gives it some very interesting validity for a commander that has this much card draw and creature removal, which is surprising. I can hear all the eyebrows raising at this point. It is doing something that makes it worth running, and we'll talk about that a little later. But yeah, interesting stuff.
I was gonna say it's in your. I always break down what your commander needs to be doing for it to be cEDHs. It needs to provide either card advantage, field control, or a combo. And guess what? He does all three.
All three.
Yeah.
Like,
Hold
that's
on,
why
Sammy.
he's been my boy. That's like, I was like, why do you play it? Well, that's why you're supposed to play him. Why do I play him? Because he's freaking cool. It's Yawgmoth, the big bad of Magic.
Of course.
But that's why I play him. But I think we know why we play this deck because it's cool. Now, I'm gonna ask, what's your game plan and general strategy? Because it's a little different from the last time I looked at this deck, and
Yeah.
I'm getting re-interested in, and I'd like to learn.
So, if you talk to Yawgmoths a few years back, they'll tell you, "Oh, it's just Crick. It's Crick with some creature control and some card draw in the command zone." Lately, the last year, maybe two, I want to say, but really this last 12 months, there's been a major, I guess, mind shift change. We're trying to adapt to the meta on a way that works, and Yawgmoth has really provided that, I think. And again, early days, we're seeing some consistency in the tournament scene, but yeah, there's something there, I think. And as far as what the game plan is concerned, so we'll go like a B, C, D, E sort of situation. So your plan A, and this, every deck has this, that, well, not every deck, but most decks have this, that one card they wish they could see every game. That one card that they'll tutor up. So the card is called Nest of Scarabs. It is essentially what you can call Yawgmoth's ad nauseum. So ad nauseum, 5-mana spell. Draw your 20 cards, 30 cards, and every brew that is on that is meant to win with that many cards. They're brewed with that intent. With Yawgmoth, it's a bit different. It's at the point where we don't even bother running ad nauseum because we're tutoring. If we have a tutor, we're tutoring for Nest of Scarabs. Nest of Scarabs is a 3-mana card. It's an enchantment, and it says, if I may pull it up here real quick, Nest of Scarabs, here we go. Whenever you put one or more neg1 counters on a creature, create that many 1/1 black insect creature tokens. So essentially, when you activate Yawgmoth and put a counter on something, create a 1/1, which you can then sack to put a counter on something, create a 1/1, which then you can sack to put a counter on something and make a 1/1. And every single iteration of that activation is drawing a card. So you've essentially got what is a 3-mana abomination of a cross between Fire Covenant, a sorcery speed Fire Covenant, crossed with a Necropotence, where you get the cards in main phase all at the same time. It is
If I may,
third card. Yeah.
We're gonna call it a cross between Fire Covenant and Yawgmoth's bargain.
Yeah, even better. That's probably an even better descriptor. It is a very, very powerful card, and it's pretty much the reason we don't even bother with Ad Nors or Citadel. Like I'm saying, if we got a tutor, we're tutoring for that. If we think, sorry, I should choose my words carefully here. If we think we can get a non-creature 1-card win con to resolve, we'll tutor for that over the others. And that's why if you do see lists not on those other, standard black 1-card win cons in the non-creature department, that is why. Yeah. Nest of Scarabs. Plan A. Hmm.
Gosh, my friends hate that card.
Very, very powerful stuff. Look, I will say this: it is limited to the toughness on board. It is limited to the toughness on board. If your opponents only have, if they're all on, oh, look, not that polymorph's terribly competitive these days, but let's just say they're all on, very low creature count, low creature, brews. You're gonna struggle, I think, a little bit. Like a Shorikai with no creatures out, it's gonna be a problem. But I will say the average cEDH game, by the time you're cast, like you've got your Yawgmoth out and you've got your Nest out, there's at least 10 toughness on board, and the brew is designed to rapidly snowball off those 10 cards, turn those 10 into another 5 to 10 cards, and from there, muster up a win, of which there is many. There is many, many wins in this deck, which is probably strange to hear, but we'll get into that in a bit. But but I'll say it now. Yawgmoth is arguably the most layered commander in all of cEDH. There's 400, 500 different combo combinations you can create to create a win.
Wow.
It is so layered. It's hard to even describe how layered it is. So I do implore everyone to look at the deck list after this video for sure. Podcast.
Yeah, we'll have it linked as usual in the description.
Good
Okay.
stuff.
Well, you know why he's a 2/4, right, instead of a 4/2?
Why is that?
Because he's layered cake.
Sure.
You're saying he's thick?
Thick, huh?
Obviously.
2 C's. Or 2
Yes.
B's, I should say.
Oh my god. But
Yawgmoth?
like that's why I like this guy. He's got like so many different paths he can take. I was running for the longest time with them. I was running a Liliana every so often. I ran because I was running him semi-casually, like high powered, and I was always running Dark Realms with him. Because you'd be surprised how many times people forget that proliferate hits Planeswalker.
Yeah, look, we've tried everything. We tried everything, and in those earlier years, we really tried to make Ad Nors work. It's ad nauseum, right? We really tried to make Citadel work. We really tried to make Reanimator work, and you would get wins. People did, But lately, it's just there's a lot of It's like we're playing 99 Singleton, and the synergy that is from card to card to card, everything just leans in on itself. Everything's so reliant on. Might not be the right word, but it's all synergizing together in such a perfect way now that it's had a real makeover. So
it's converging into the single vortex that is Yawgmoth.
And that is Plan B. We're going to get into now. Plan B is, I want to say, probably how we mainly win, because let's be honest, it's 2024. There is a lot of counterspells, and counterspell quality is. A lot of it is free to cast, and it is layered. And resolving a Nest of Scarabs, or an Ad Nauseam, for example, can be difficult, very difficult when you're in mono black. Resolving a Reanimate to reanimate a Villas, or pick your reanimation target for Crick, of which there's a few, but it's that Reanimate needs to resolve. Expecting it to resolve can be a very tall order facing down what I would say is a blue meta. It's been a blue meta since forever and a day, so we need to capitalize on the fact that counterspells, the vast majority of counterspells these days do not hit creatures. They struggle with creatures. And this is why Plan B sometimes will feel like a Plan A, because majority of the time, they can't stop you. People don't eat their vegetables. They don't run their creature removal that they should. And Yawgmoth is brewed in a way to capitalize on that. So let's get into it. So Plan B is your Yawgmoth. So this is your bread and butter. This is your backbone of the commander. This is what everyone should be striving to do as they play. It's Yawgmoth plus an Undying creature. So a creature with Undying. So when this creature dies, when it goes to the graveyard, a trigger will happen to bring it back, putting a +1/+1 counter on it. So Yawgmoth plus an Undying creature, plus anything that combos with that Undying creature. So it's Yawgmoth plus 2 other cards. From there, it creates I guess many people call it different things, but basically like an Undying loop, where your Undying creature will come back, and then you'll be able to sack something else to remove that +1/+1 counter, essentially resetting it. And in every instance that you create this combo, Yawgmoth, Undying Creature, plus something that combos with the Undying Creature, you'll be drawing cards equal to how much life you have, well, almost equal to how much life you have left. And you can stop at any point, as well as distributing neg1 counters. So, as an example, you'll have Yawgmoth, an Undying Creature, and another Undying Creature, and they remove the counter off one another. Or you can have Yawgmoth, an Undying Creature, and a token generator. So there's a batch, Magic the Gathering has a batch of cards within that 2, 3, a little bit 4 now mana cost, where it says whenever a creature dies, create a token creature. And we use that token, we sack that token to put the counter on the Undying Creature to reset it. And from there, you got 30 life left. I mean, you can pay 26 life, distribute -26 to the board, essentially wiping the board so that you do see your next turn. Unless someone's got haste, you will see your next turn, as well as drawing your 26 cards. The brew in general is designed to win. You can easily put a win together with 20 cards. So 26 should definitely get there in that example. But yeah, that's plan B.
Yeah, really quick question.
Yeah,
So
shoot.
I understand the Undying that you so the way that +1/+1 counters and -1/-1 counters work is if a creature has a +1/+1 counter on it, you put a -1/-1 counter on it, they both just cancel out and
do.
they cease to exist. So that the next time you sacrifice a creature that has Undying, it wouldn't have any counters. It'll come back with a +1/+1 and you can repeat.
Yeah.
So how exactly does that work with what you were saying with like could you give me an example of a token generator that
Yeah, of
so let's
course.
say you have
So
a
the classic
Geralt's
token
Messenger.
generator. Yeah, so Giraffe Messenger. Yeah, so what will happen is you'll cast your Giraffe Messenger,
Mhm.
you will sack it, you'll distribute your neg1 counter, and remember, you don't have to put the counter on anything. So if they have no creatures on board at all, it's fine. You can just put a counter on nothing. Now, let's just say you had a token generator at the same time. It's a good example here. Let's say Pawn of Ulamog, All-Star.
Yeah.
When Pawn of Ulamog says, when it or another non-token creature you control is put into your graveyard, create a 0/1 colorless Eldrazi token, and you can sacrifice the token to generate 1 generic mana, but in this case, that's irrelevant. So, in other words, it basically says create a 0/1 creature token when a creature you control dies. Now, so when you sacrifice the Undying creature, you get to order these triggers. They trigger at the same time.
Mhm.
The Undying to return it, as well as create that 0/1. So you'll order it so that the 0/1 gets created. And then when the Undying creature comes out of the graveyard with the +1/+1 counter, you've now got that token to sacrifice to put the neg1 counter on the Undying creature. And like you said, Ganesh, +1/+1 counters and -1/-1 counters in Magic the Gathering, when they put on the same thing, they cancel each other out. So anything with a +1/+1 counter and a 1/1 counter at the same time, both are removed. So if it's already got a +1/+1 counter and you put neg1 on it, which is another neg1 counter, the +1/+1 counter simply gets removed, nothing more. And it
Right.
works in reverse too. If there's something with a neg1 like persist, putting a +1/+1 counter on it will remove the neg1 counter. Yeah. So in this
Okay.
case, it's all about just, I suppose you could say, resetting the Undying creature. Now you're probably wondering how many of them are there? There's not too many. I believe there's. It's because there are chunkier ones that brewers can opt in, but generally speaking, there's about 6. We got a new one recently as well in from the Fallout set: Hancock, Ghoulish Mare. So there's 6 of them. So this is having this as the backbone, and there be only 6 of them can be a bit of a problem. You do need to
Mhm.
dig a little bit, but the entire brew is designed to do that. It's cantrip tribal is what people have called this. Eggs. If anyone has ever played against or played with Joyra,
Right.
the Eggs Joyra, it plays a lot like that, but instead of it being artifacts, it's free creatures, so to speak. So
Right.
you do zip through your library very quickly to find those 6 cards. You combine those 6 slots with your 5, 6, 7, 10 shooters, find them, and it gets some serious consistency to find these backbone cards.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's Plan B. Yep. Now, if we're talking Plan C, so these ones are a little bit less wordy, but Plan C. So there are a lot of combos in the brew that don't utilize these undying creatures. They, you brew in a way where you brew for a lot of value and to really find those, to really find the way to win with Plan B. But in doing so, you've accidentally created a lot of combos by accident. It feels like almost every day that the Yawgmoth Discord is discovering combos. You know, it turns out when you play, all this aristocrat stuff, this pile of junk, you find wins on the fly, and people report them. Hey, I won this way. Like just yesterday, we were talking about how ways we can win through Grafdigger's Cage, because Grafdigger's Cage is a problem, obviously,
Yeah.
for these undying creatures. And someone brought up the fact of how you can create a construct, which off of Urza Sagas, which says gain +1/+1 for each artifact you control, and also have a Pitiless Plunderer out, which says whenever a creature dies, create a treasure, and have a creature die over and over, making treasures, and the treasures, it gets how do I say, the construct bigger and bigger, and so
Right.
like a nest of scarabs, for example, when you sack a token or sack anything and put a counter on the construct is losing -1/-1, but because the nest died, a treasure gets created, making the construct bigger at the same time, and all of that works through Grafdigger's Cage, and that was one that I learnt about, a couple of years back, but then forgot, and I got, it's just like constantly coming across new stuff and revitalizing old lines, and it's a lot of memory is required, I think, for this commander, but also not, because this is all Plan C. It's all peripheral stuff, all extra combos, so to speak. I won't get into like what there is and what there isn't, but there is a lot. There's maybe a good batch of, say, 100 different combinations of stuff that you won't particularly seek out, but that could occur. Should RNG give you certain cards? Because we've all been there. We draw certain cards, and it's like, oh, okay, this is the easiest line now to go for, and some of those are under that Plan C umbrella.
Could
Yeah.
you give us a couple that are
Yeah,
not
yeah.
just undying creature, token generator, or
I've got
drain
some.
outlet?
Of course, I got some very interesting stuff. So, if I
Ooh.
may,
If you could
I'll,
bring up my favorite first, which is the demon, because people always questioned me on that, and I think you know exactly what the question is that they ask.
Treacherous Pit Dweller. Are you talking about?
Yes.
Well, Treacherous Pit Dweller is a part of Plan. It's a good point. It's a good point. The Treacherous Pit Dweller is an undying creature. It's a very strange one. It's double black, so 2 black for a 4/3 with undying, but it says some very certain kind of text we hate to see. It says when it ETBs from the graveyard, so when you've sacrificed it, a trigger will get put on the stack to give it away. Right? Now, in our brew, we never give it away. That card just reads double black, sacrifice it twice, because we sack it in response. So you're never actually giving it to anyone. But strangely, the card does combo with token generators, but not other undying creatures. See, normally 2 undying creatures wins you the game on the spot. Well, not wins you the game spot, but draws you your 30 cards. It's impossible, nearly after drawing that many. Now, Treacherous Pit Dweller is an undying creature where, because of that ETB trigger off of the death, it gets stuck under, like the Yawgmoth activation gets stuck underneath, and you can never actually loop the 2 undiers with the 1/1 counter back to back, like you usually do. And so it's a very strange card that only combos with token generators. And it turns out it doesn't get stuck when working with a token generator. Yeah, very interesting stuff. You can layer the triggers so that you still do get to constantly create the token, remove the 1/1 counter off the Treacherous Pit Dweller, and then stack it and then reset it. So it can reset with token generators, but not other undiers. But it is a very lengthy explanation of how to do that.
That's
But
wild.
yeah, and again, it shout out to the Yawgmoth Discord. I implore you to have a look at it. There's a primer getting made as well. which is fantastic. There'll be a link to that as well here. But
Yes.
yeah, and it'll go over. It's a very lengthy paragraph, but yeah, there is. I guess what I'm trying to say is, Sammy, you're spot on. Like, there is a lot of things in the list that are that you would never understand how it won if you had never looked into it. Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah, I suffered for that card, but because I literally had a sheet of paper because I was taking before I built Malcolm Kedis, this was kind of my go-to deck to take in pub stomp at events that were offering like, oh, $5 entry, but you can win up to like $100. It's like, oh well,
Yep.
I'm pretty good on Yawgmoth, and people would be like, oh well, that doesn't work like that, and I'd be like, pull it out, and I'd be like, this is how you can layer everything, and I'd pull it out, explain the whole thing, and I'm just like,
it's a lot. It's a lot. There is a lot to it. You know, I'm an ex Gitrog enjoyer. And
me too.
yeah, it gave me the tools mentally to be able to actually brew this to the way that we have, to work with a team, with everyone on the Yawgmoth Discord to create this monster. And there is elements to it that really feel, it really reminds me of Gitrog. It's like you would not understand how to win with it unless you looked into it, unless you knew what you were doing. But that's good, you know?
Budget.
Yeah.
I blame Mitch on, is it Mitch on Budget Commander for explaining how Gitrog is like a cEDH deck that you could pick really cheap. So like first cEDH deck I picked up was Gitrog, and I'll never forgive him for that.
Yeah. No, and look, speaking of Gitrog, I will say, that deck was notorious back at the height of its power, at the reign of its terror, for being a deck that once it's set up, you cannot stop it.
Yeah.
And once it is set up, it is going to keep going. And if you happen to stop it, it's going to go for win after win after win after. Once it is set up, this deck is very, very similar to that. It is a deck that is. It's not. Turbo is a strong word. I think everyone has a different definition. I think turbo is a very, you are winning quick, real quick. This is not turbo. I think Crick is one turn quicker than it, for example. If we're just trying to goldfish, for example. But this commander, it's putting win after win after win, turn after turn after turn, like a Gitrog deck, and it is very hard to interact with because of this recent mind shift change that we've all had. About a year ago, this epiphany that, oh, hang on, no, creatures are really hard to counterspell. And so we've lent into creatures to such a degree where your counterspells are my counterspells, is the mindset. I mean, people call that parasitic. I call it, abuse of the meta. It's an observation. We're capitalizing on the fact that all of the table's counterspells don't work on us, but they work on one another. So we're counterspelling people, but through other players, if that makes sense, by not ever running these non-creature win cons.
We're using your resources as our resources.
Exactly.
This is Yawgmoth the Inevitable.
Yeah, exactly. Yawgmoth the Inevitable. It really is. But look, moving on. So that's Plan C. So there's a lot of peripheral stuff. A lot of them involve Pitiless Plunderer. Some of them involve, Warren Soul Trader. Another one, it's basically just a bigger, better Phyrexian Altar, for example. But yeah, it's again creatures. It's so hard. I hope you brought your Swords to Plowshares. I hope you got 15 of them in your brew because you're gonna need them. So anyway, and the last plan, and this is a bit of a new one. This one we've been deploying for about 6 months only. It's only because of what Wizards has printed recently. Plan D is, you're gonna laugh, but it's combat. It's combat. Strangely, it is combat. And it's not so much combat as in to win. Most of the time, the combat is taken seriously as a way to remove Grafdigger's Cages, Disruptor Flutes, Deafening Silences, problematic cards that Mono Black is just not equipped to deal with. It sounds strange, but when you're playing a commander that, you're sacking 4, 6, 8 cards in a turn, the Aristocrats cards, of which there is about 10 of them, so your Blood Artist type stuff, whenever a creature dies, each player loses a life, or target player loses a life. That stuff adds up really quickly. There's games where you're on turn 5, or turn 6, it's a stacksy game. Everyone's locked out, everyone's stopped. You know, there's nonsense everywhere. Feels like it's going to go to time, and you're looking at the life totals and you're like, how is everyone on? All my opponents, they're all on 25 life, and all of a sudden, you look at your board and you're a creature-based deck, and you've got 10 power on board in all these little 1/1s and 2/2s and such. You know, and sometimes we run the stuff that's kind of scary on the life total pressure, like a Shell Dread, for example.
Yeah.
And combat starts to become player removal, starts to become a serious option. So look, not everyone, and again, it's a new mindshift change, this new idea. Not everyone is deploying this tactic in brewing. It is something that I'm personally finding success with. But yeah, there is a lot of room to actually just straight up remove a player from the table and then win after their stacks is off the table. So plan D, player removal. I can definitely see a future where because we've got a batch of new life like popular egotist, for example. We got Vengeful Blood Witch over in Foundations. You know, there's I believe we got Funeral Room as well. All this new tech to just do a lot of pressure to life totals. I can definitely envision in a few years' time, for example, if we get more of them, will actually become a genuine threat to life totals consistently, which is very interesting, I think.
Are there any other like kind of weird combos you'd like to highlight?
There's always weird combos, and whilst I'm on XYZ, the next player can be on ABC because there's just so many in this shell. Ones that I would personally like to highlight. I think I want to shout out. I think Ozox, the new card Ozox, is something I'd love to shout out.
What section is that one in?
So, Ozox, the Clattering King. It's a 3-mana. It's a 3-mana creature. It's a 3/2 skeleton noble. It can't block, so he's a skeleton. I don't think he's going to be blocking very well. But he has one ability. When it dies, create a 2/1 token. Right. And then the other ability is when that token dies, return Ozox from the grave to your hand. So I won't particularly, point out how it's just an ongoing mana dump that it doesn't matter how many cards you have in hand. Say you've only got one card in hand, just Ozox, but you got 15 mana. You're just easily able to dump all that into Ozox. Not that you get 15 mana normally, but it's an ongoing card advantage engine that you constantly have access to. Basically reads also, like 3 mana, get 2 card drawn. Yeah, so 3 mana, 2 Yawgmoth activations, which is 2 cards drawn, and distribute 2 -1/-1 counters, and also trigger all your token generators. Like cards that say when this creature dies, create a token. So it's a lot of value, but as far as it in a combo sense, the fact that it is ran in our brew for value, but then you can anything like a Pitiless Plunderer or
Medallion Pitiless Plunderer makes this infinite.
It makes it infinite. It's spot on, Sammy. It makes it infinite. So it's a way to win through Grafdigger's Cage, and that one. Yeah, and this is what I'm trying to say. Like we've run all these things for value, and accidentally we find, oh, hang on, this actually brings a lot to the table of relevance on the combo front. So shout out to that new one. To be honest, I've been having a lot of fun with that. A lot of value. Yeah.
Now, I was gonna ask. We've got into the combos pretty effectively, and we could go into them for basically days on days on days because there's so many variations. It's like a Rubik's Cube, man, except we just solve it to get to the win. But it'd feel like a 60-sided Rubik's Cube if we were going to do this. No. But how does it function early, mid, and late game? Like early game?
Yeah. So early game, look, this is a commander that everyone has those cards they love to see. Your blue decks love to see their Ristics. Combo decks love to see their main combo piece in hand. This deck is kind of like that. It loves to see its version of Ristics. It loves to see its version of a combo piece. Like, if there's a nest in hand, I'm happy. right? I'm happy if there's a nest in hand. But also, this is a deck that plays kind of like I said earlier, like a Joyra. You know, sometimes you can have nothing but eggs in your hand, so to speak, and you know the plan is literally to get Yawgmoth out, and you've got a card advantage source, and you draw into the win cons. You know, we've done hypergeometric calculations on the brew, and it turns out, you know, quite often, more often than not, 78% of the time, when you draw 7 cards with this commander, you've drawn into something that will combo. I know how ridiculous that sounds, but it's that layered. You're drawing. You got your Yawgmoth, you ramp that out. You got your card draw card, a couple of cantrips, sort of thing. You're drawing, say, 7 or so cards off of Yawgmoth and a couple for turn, and all of a sudden you've got the win. And so there's this huge range recommendation not to mulligan for the win, but to mulligan to get into the game, but really get a foothold on the card advantage front, and the rest is history. Your brew just wins accidentally by drawing 7, 8, 9 cards. It really is that layered. But so early game, that as far as mulligans are concerned, it is recommended try and go for a bit of value, unless it's something that your hand is clear cut. There's a win right there. You've got the ramp, you've got the win. But yeah, it's the way that we do brew. We always say ad nauseum is too slow. Bolas's Citadel is too slow. And the reason for that is there is this mindset that by the time Yawgmoth gets cast, so, turn 4 the latest, you are winning. You should have a win when Yawgmoth resolves. And so all of our combo pieces, we like them to be 1, 2, 3 mana. So if you happen to have it in your mulligan, great. But if not, you're going to draw into them very easily. Very, very easily. But that's early game. So early game, we're looking for just a lot of value. Mid game, really so if we're calling mid game, say turn 3, that magic number where people are putting wins on the stack or trying to stop people from winning. I think you want to have, you really should have put a win on the stack by about turn 3. Yawgmoth's not a turbo deck per se. I think that's a strong word, but it is a very fast deck. I think turn 3 is what you're aiming for as far as a win attempt. Or if not a win attempt, you want to have at least one piece of the plan B or plan C we went through earlier. So preferably an Undying Creature, because Undying Creatures just combo with everything, it seems like.
Right.
But we'll take a token generator. A token generator combos with your 6 Undying Creatures, and you got all your tutors to grab the Undying Creatures. It turns out that when your list is this layered, you accidentally drop combo pieces just for value. There's these high card draw pieces that happen to combo with an Undying Creature. It's people say, oh, run this card, run that card. They're 1 card win cons, and it's like, yes, but when your deck is this layered and you're dropping combo pieces, any tutor is a 1 card win con at that point, because you're always like, let me word it like this. Imagine you're in Dimir and you're on a brew that has 10 Thassa's Oracles and 10 Demonic Tutors. You know what I'm trying to say? Like, drawing 5 cards, the chance of you finding the other half is really, really high. And when your Thassa's Oracles are all really high value and you're running them just for value, all of a sudden every tutor in your list is able to get these 10 Demonic Tutors with ease. Because it's almost like you're dropping AB combos so consistently that you only ever are after the other side of it. And so everything just feels like a 1 card win con, like you're 1 card away from winning, if that makes sense. So yeah, mid game, it's all about dropping 1/2 of an AB there. AB combo. Hope I haven't lost you guys.
No.
Yeah.
Brother,
Interesting
you
stuff.
ain't gonna lose me on this deck. This is my baby. This is my favorite.
Look, it
me-
is very complicated. It's doing something very different. Aristocrat strategies in a cEDH setting, a tournament setting, very, very strange. And again, if there's anything that we've missed in this video, podcast, by all means, hit up the Yawgmoth Discord, ask away the silly questions. Everyone's always so happy to help over there. So, but
Yeah, for sure.
yeah, and I'm
So
assuming we want to talk about late game.
Uh, just to summarize, so basically what you're
Sure.
saying is, you're not looking for your combo pieces when you're mulliganing, and you're not looking for them really in the early game. You're
Strangely.
looking to set up. You're looking for, maybe a token generator, a way to get Yawgmoth out quickly, and then you're just kind of sitting
Yep.
there, controlling the
Yeah.
board, killing creatures, drawing cards.
Yep. But
And
that's
then
what
you'll
I'm
win
saying.
late.
That's what I'm saying, Ganesh. It's your token generators are combo pieces. They all combo with the Undying creatures. So think of it like, there's all these Ristics. I mean, that's an extreme example, but there's all these like really great card advantage engines
Right.
that are all combo pieces. People always say in both in tournaments and outside, they always say, "Oh, careful, the Yawgmoth, that's a combo piece. That's a combo piece." And it's like everything is a combo piece. So you don't understand. Everything is a combo piece. The entire brew is like, 3 cards. They're all combo pieces. Every single
Yeah.
one.
They
Yeah.
also get you value. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But on that note, like there is a fair bit of politicking that has to happen. You have to, because it is Brewer's advantage. People always talk about Brewer's advantage, but they don't talk about Brewer's disadvantage. People removing the Yawgmoth just because they're scared. Careful, he's going to win. And it's like, no, we're a good 1 to 2 cards away here, and you have to explain yourself, right? So this is where watching this video is important. Reading the primer, looking at deck lists, understanding the lines, being able to explain not how close you are, but how far you are as well. Very important. Being able to articulate yourself in a way that's concise and that they can understand. Very important. Yeah. But that's mid game. We want one of those pieces if we can. Spot on, Ganeshaha.
So how are you doing in the late game? So I like that we talked about Ozox already, because that's probably one of the decent things, I guess. I mean, the best thing would be to win, but apart
Yeah.
from that, mana sinking into this thing, it seems pretty darn good. In
Look,
general.
I mentioned Ozox because it's a new shiny tech that we just got from Foundations.
Mhm.
The jumpstart, but there are much better options as far as mana dumps are concerned. If we want to
Oh
talk
yeah,
that,
tell us.
so yeah, look, there are some all stars in the brew. A
Mhm.
card come out recently. It's made its way in a few commander deck lists, but it's absolute all star here. I think it's probably the commander that abuses it the most. You ever heard of a card called Forsaken Miner?
I've
Forsaken
seen it
Miner.
once. I was playing against Nybar, and he was playing this in
Hmm.
Kodama
Uh,
Tonish.
he was also
Well,
playing it in Ratos. It is a killer card. Forsaken
Yeah.
Miner. Oh my
so
god.
let me, for the audience out here that doesn't quite understand Yawgmoth, to put it in like simple terms, this is how it feels like it plays. Forsaken Miner says you have an emblem, yes, an emblem, that reads pay 1 black, draw a card, put a neg 1 counter on something, all at instant speed, at any point.
Done.
Like that's how it feels like it. Yeah, it's ridiculous. So it's basically a 1 mana creature, mono black, and it's a 2/2. All the text is irrelevant other than the fact that it says when you commit a crime. So crime is targeting a player, person or thing, essentially. Their grave, their library, their hand, the player itself, the creature that they control, a card on the stack they have, like a counterspell. So when you commit a crime, pay a black and put it from the grave onto the battlefield, all in response to committing the crime. So essentially, anytime you activate Yawgmoth, you may pay a black to return it from the bin. Now, I know what everyone's thinking. Does it actually work that way? Yes. So you can sacrifice the Forsaken Miner, a crime gets triggered, and you're paying a black to put it onto the field. And you're probably thinking, how is it like an emblem, Strix? What rubbish are you talking? People are just going to use grave hate on it. You can sacrifice any creature to commit another crime and do it again. And so you go over and the amount of times this happens, people will go, oh, it works like that. You get caught out. It goes every single time you target anything for any reason, it triggers and you get to pay a black and put it on the board and keep going and going, all at instant speed. So it turns into like the perfect mana dump and creature control. That people just you can't play your creatures anymore. Your creature-based combos are not going to happen. So it's a lot of value. Great card.
What else? Are there anything else that you might want to point out that's of value? Like maybe a land that's really good in the later game or something like that.
I got one for you. There's two cards in particular, but one that particularly is really eyebrow raising. We don't run the One Ring. I mean, it comes down to the philosophy of, we assume that the One Ring is going to get counterspelled, and we can't protect it because we're in mono black. But even if the One Ring was a creature, I think we'd probably still prefer this card I'm about to say. Giza the Hellraiser. Giza the Hellraiser draws so many cards that it makes the One Ring look terrible. Here in particular, it reads like draw 8 cards, distribute 8 neg1 counters per turn cycle. If you'd like. But it also reads draw 4 cards, distribute 4 neg1 counters per turn cycle, and have a board that is so threatening players just die to player removal from combat. It's really powerful stuff. So yeah, Giza reads 5 mana creature. I believe it's a 4/4. If I'm wrong, just gonna quick look. I'm pretty sure it's a 4/4.
It's a 4/4.
It's funny. Yeah, but so it's got Ward 2, I believe, and it says whenever a crime is committed, so whenever you activate Yawgmoth, once per turn only, but whenever a crime is committed once per turn, create 2 2/2s. 2 zombies, and Giza herself gives them all +1/+1, so they're really 3/3s. And yeah, you're doing that 4 times per turn cycle, once per player's turn, and it's just a lot of card draw. I mean, it translates into 8 cards per turn and 8 neg1 counters. So
yeah, they banned the wrong Nadu.
People have done that. People genuinely in tournaments, people have called this Black Nadu because if I'm not winning, it's going to time. There is so many legal game actions here that judges constantly have to watch over the game, looking for slow play, but there is none. All your actions are quick, but you're a massive, massive time hog like Krakashima. It's kind of beautiful, to be honest. Not many people are aware of that. That's so Giza. Giza, fantastic card. A lot of card advantage, a lot of creature removal in build, and it's, not only do they have no blockers when a Giza sticks, they're now taking 25 damage sort of thing per turn cycle. You know what I mean? So turns out having a batch of, 6 3/3s plus a 4/4 plus a Yawgmoth and all this stuff. Yeah, very, very quick player removal. So
you like this card? There's what was that other zombie commander we did, Samurai, that just pumped out a bunch of zombies?
Oh, the blue-black zombie guy.
The name's escaping me right now, but I know exactly what. Wilheld?
Yeah, it's Wilheld. The rock pleat.
Yeah, Wilheld's great. Definitely interesting.
The fun one.
But I definitely look at this and I'm like, yep, Giza, because I was gonna ask why no One Ring, but as I looked through the list, I was like, nah, it's fine. He's embracing the truth thing. Because I was off of here and I was off ad nauseum for a long time on Yawgmoth after my first year with it, because I was just like, nah, Commander's the only card advantage you really need, and once he's out, he's so hard to deal with. And lo and behold, you found a way to make him draw more cards, just more consistently.
Yeah, I probably should have said this at the start, but this particular brew, this new evolution of Yawgmoth, I suppose you could say, it's called Yawgmoth XEROX, is the title of the deck. And the reason for that, this is really important, is the deck is full of creatures that it turns into XEROX cards. Now that, I believe the Mind Sculptors talked about the word XEROX a little while back.
I got you. I just literally, I just showed your deck list to a friend of mine, and he asked why XEROX, so I sent him the definition.
Yeah.
XEROX decks is one that uses cheap cantrips to their fullest potential, including shaving lands by making the cantrips into pseudo lands. Because you run so many free creatures in this deck, they all become they become redraws or even two draws, in all honesty.
Yeah, 100%. So my personal brew's on 12. I've seen people run 14. I know that there's about 16 or 17, but they get more and more, well, less desirable the more you add. But this batch of 12 that I'm on are clear and cut, super easily soluble XEROX cards. Now, I define XEROX, well, not I define, I mean, generally speaking, I can help explain what a XEROX card is very simply. It's a card that costs no mana that fully replaces itself. So everyone, to the people who play Anya, you'll know what I'm talking about. It's just a whole bunch of stuff that, everyone's playing a 99 card deck and you're playing in this case, an 87 card deck. But in this case, something very, very unique is occurring. One, they're not just do-nothing XEROX cards. Like a Gataxian Probe, they actually have an effect attached to them. You're distributing neg1 counters as you're doing these XEROX effects. Right? So you, as an example, play a clown card, tap your Yawgmoth. You paid 0 mana, sacrifice the clown card, distribute a neg1 counter, replace the clown card, and that cost you 0 mana to do. The other interesting aspect of all this is we run a healthy batch of token generating cards. There's about 7 or so really competitive ones. So these creatures, these cards that say whenever a creature you control dies, create a creature token. And so all 12 of these XEROX cards, working in conjunction with these token generators, it turns into, for free, so for 0 mana and 0 card loss, you are drawing a card. Well, 2 in this case, because you're replacing the card and you're getting an extra card from the generating of the extra token. I think I lost a few people there, but it's definitely yeah, you can see why it zips through the library so quickly. You draw 20 cards in a few turns, and a lot of people do freak out. A lot of people see that oh my god, he drew 20 cards, but they don't realize that a lot of it is just cantrip tribal, I suppose you could call it. So,
I looked at it and I was like, oh, Convoke, and I was like, oh, that's so smart in this deck. And basically, what you're doing is you're turning either 1 mana into two cards, or or it's replacing itself by making a treasure, or if it's free, it draws you a card, puts that -1/-1, and sometimes it even does something on its way out or its way in, like Grief. Looking at you, love that card. Glad you found a home for it.
Yeah, Grief's fantastic. Yeah. The amount of like turn 1, turn 2 Yawgmoths I have cast to then Grief someone like a cEDH scam deck. And then in response to the evoke, making the Grief die, you would actually sacrifice it. The Grief gets replaced, and you got rid of someone's Sentinel or Ragavan or whatever. Really powerful stuff.
Yeah. For sure.
But but look, as for late game, I just to finish off the, how do we function? That question. This is a deck, like I mentioned earlier, that just puts win attempt after win attempt on the stack. It is a deck that, say you got your Yawgmoth out and your AB combo, you got one half of it. It means that every other card in the library is useless to you. Not useless, but you don't need it in that moment. And so, what is Yawgmoth? Yawgmoth is a literal free skull clamping type thing in the command zone. And so you're casting these cards, sacking them, simply just going through the library really quickly, finding the other half of an AB combo. And once you've set up that AB combo, you draw your 30 cards. The deck is chock full of not free, but mana positive ramp. In a lot of cases, it is free. Chrome Mox Amber, yada yada. From there, you're just dropping any of the 10 Blood Artist effects. That means you don't lose any more life. They're all like whenever you sacrifice a creature, deal a damage, gain a life. So the life is completely paid for that you lose. And that's why when, in tournaments, people will swing. They genuinely swing at the mono black deck. Makes perfect sense. I'd swing at the mono black deck. But what they don't realize is that this deck operates exactly like Hapatra when it comes to life total, generally speaking, Hapatra, in that 40 life and 5 life are the same thing as far as the win is concerned. We win on 40, we win on 5, it's all the same task. Swinging at the Yawgmoth lowering its life total. All it's doing is making specifically Nest of Scarabs less efficient. That's it. Yeah, but we don't. Again, it's a plan A. Sure, we love it. Definitely like the primary game plan if we can get away with it. But we are in mono black. We assume that it's going to get counterspelled, and we go for plan B, which is very, very consistently easy to muster up because of like what we're talking about, this XEROX stuff. You know, the token production, it just goes through the library like a hot knife through butter. You know, 20 cards, turn 3, turn 4. Easily.
So our next kind of section here is what are the deck's strengths, but I think we have talked.
I got some stuff to say.
about
I
this.
definitely got some.
Oh yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
I got. It's quick stuff. I think you'll find the stuff very interesting.
Yeah.
Yawgmoth's all of the win cons, like not the cantripping, constantly casting, but the win cons themselves, all work through rule of law. That is look. We're not in a rule of law meta at this stage, but we are in a Ristic meta. You win in a way where you're not putting Ristic triggers on the stack, which is interesting, I think, for sure. I've got one here. There is a card called Bridge from Below. Whenever a creature dies, create a 2/2, but the card has to be in your graveyard. So entombs, any entomb effect with an undying creature wins the game for the most part. But the fact that you can use any instant speed tutor to put the Bridge from Below in your hand, and then pay 2 at instant speed to discard it to Yawgmoth. It's kind of acts like an entomb. So any instant speed tutor to hand or top deck, because you can draw off the top of your library very easily at instant speed. It's like an entomb, and so winning at instant speed is very, very easy in this deck because of Bridge from Below. Some people go for the win, and everyone's out of counter spells. They can't stop the Thassa's Oracle Demonic Consult. The console resolves, they exile their library, everyone's out of interaction. At that point, you can now Bridge from Below, go for the win that way. Really interesting stuff. So another interesting fact, that's the strength. The deck is immune to Bowmasters. So we're probably one of the only decks in the entire format that, despite having a draw outlet in the command zone, like a Thrasios type situation, we actually, their Bowmasters never lives. It's people cast the Bowmasters and it dies immediately because it's a 1/1, right?
-1/-1.
Yeah. So immune to Bowmasters is a big deal. Yeah.
This deck is really brutal to 1/1s. I don't know if people realize how brutal that is, but I have a friend who likes to run that Tyrannid. He tried to make that commander the one that doubles X spells, and he has literally taken that apart and dissolved it because the minute I was like, well, it's a 1/1, right? And he's like, yeah. It's like, well, it's never not going to be a 1/1.
So a couple of quick more strengths. So again, it's the most layered deck in all of cEDH. So you're just constantly putting win con after win con. Being shut down is a part of the commander. You assume you're going to get shut down, and you assume you're going to go for the win in the very next turn and the turn after. Once you're set up, it's just constant, never ending in that regard. Here's a really interesting fact. Here is a strength that blows my mind, and that should raise everyone's eyebrows, I think. I would go as far as to say we are the deck that breaks Bowmasters the most, as far as running it. In this brew, every time anyone draws a card, with this commander, anytime anyone draws a card, you sacrifice your Orc army in response to the Bowmasters trigger. When it makes a new Orc army, you immediately you can, but every single ping is a Yawgmoth activation. So every single time anyone draws, you draw and distribute a neg-1 counter. It is extremely broken here, more than I think anywhere else.
So for those that are not understanding what's going on, the way the amassing the Orc army works, if there's no Orc army on the board, you'll make a new one. But you can actually sack the Orc army in response to the trigger, like whatever draw trigger is going on to Yawgmoth, and then there'll be no Orc army on the board, and Bowmasters will make you a new one when its trigger fully resolves.
Yeah, simply sacrificing the Orc army in between every single ping to Yawgmoth is also drawing you a card as anyone else draws a card, and you're distributing a neg-1 counter. It's beautiful. And all of your aristocrats, every single time they're drawing a card in this situation, they're all taking a life. You're gaining a life. It's brilliant. Bowmasters. You definitely are meant to remove that when you see it on a Yawgmoth board. Yeah, so it's another one. Again, we play there is many games where it feels like your opponents are playing chicken with one another. So it all comes down to how well you can politic, but it's like you have a Drannith Magistrate in the command zone, or like a Bowmasters in the command zone. No one wants to be the first one to drop their Timner. No one wants to be the first one to drop their Esper Sentinel. No, you know what I mean? So and you can table talk, you know, it creates this situation where no one gets to play their creatures until Yawgmoth's dealt with, which is beautiful. And if they impact their swords, I mean, it's over. Yeah, but the other thing is we are in another strength. We are in quite a green meta now. Since the dockside banning, there seems to be this big shift back to Guy's Cradle. With that, Yawgmoth is eating good. Eating
I
good,
bet.
to say the least. It's people get very upset. People will get very upset. So yeah, it's definitely a good time to get into it. But and then I would say the last point I got, the last strength, there's been a lot of new tech. There's been a lot of new tech. There's a lot of room for brewing, for working with fellow Yawgmoths on the Discord. You know, a couple just to name a few that people can look at here. Stuff that's come out recently that because you know you got to understand. I'm talking to the people that have been around for a few years now. That you know they looked at Yawgmoth back in the day, and you know sometimes Wizards prints things and you know, casual commanders become very comp viable, and I think that's what's happened here. Forsaken Miner that we went over, Giza. Another really broken one is 9 Lives Familiar. Is a new card that really broke it. Bowmasters, of course. All the new Blood Artist cards. The Hancock that we mentioned earlier, another Undying creature. Really great stuff. Really great stuff. But yeah, honestly, another strength. You're just going to be drawing so many cards, you won't even miss heuristic. Put it that way.
Okay, cool. Yeah, Shimmer, you want to get this next one? Oh,
Sure can. Sorry. Uh, my friends commenting on why I would go back to this. Maybe they thought I had given up on this. We had just done some have we done tips for newer players on this? Because I think,
no,
dear
we're on
God, we need.
weaknesses right now.
Oh,
We're on
weaknesses.
weaknesses. Oh no, there's no weaknesses on. No, there's clearly like one. There is 3 glaring weaknesses on this deck, and I think we all know what they are.
Of course.
But
Yeah.
but let's hear it from Strix, the man, the legend. Strix, what are
Okay.
the weaknesses of this deck?
Look, elephant in the room. It's mono black. Okay, you're in. This is a blue format. You know, you need to have a damn good reason for moving away from blue. You know, it does Yawgmoth those strengths that we just went over. Is it enough to justify it? I'm not so sure. I always will miss my blue. But there are, you know, if we see rule of laws get printed more, if we see green become even more of a thing, more stapley 1 toughness creatures like your, you know, Lothos and your Sentinels and such get more
Right.
stuff like that get printed. I think Yawgmoth just gets more and more relevant. But as far as weakness is concerned, we are mono black. So it's not just that we're a monocolor, and that sucks, but we're mono black, and that really sucks. And I can tell you why. We don't have artifact removal. I mean, I would go as far as to say we don't have enchantment removal. You know, the 3 mana instant speed enchantment removal is the best we got, and it hurts. It hurts a lot. This is why I was saying this mindset change recently, that try to take combat damage a little bit seriously just to remove the one guy that has the cage out. It's not a terrible plan. You know, Grafdigger's Cage is a very big problem. Obviously, it stops all the Undying creatures, stops your Forsaken Miner. I mean, look, we got a few ways we can win through Grafdigger's Cage, like I said. Ozox makes it very interesting. But generally speaking, Cage is a massive problem for this brew. We do have answers for it. You know, Engineered Explosives and Blast Zone. But Cage is a massive problem. So, yeah, I would say the first one is we're mono black, and we don't have answers for these other problems, which is, you know, Cage. Another one, Curse Totem, Disrupt the Flute. Those 2 are massive problems to the brew. But again, you know, you need to have ways to remove these. You know, running your Khan Khan, Gate to Phyrexia, Sword of Sinew and Steel. Yeah,
I love Ratchet Bomb. That's been one of my favorite.
yeah, Ratchet Bomb. It is. Sometimes there can be oofs and null rods and stone silencers and stuff, so you do got to keep that in mind. But it all comes down to risk versus reward and what the pilot's happy to brew with. But generally speaking, all these answers suck. Let's be honest, they all suck.
Yeah,
And
they're terrible.
yeah, and so this is why I'm saying it's having these options. Like take a simple Formulus, the Infestation, the new card from Foundations, right? It's a token generator, but after a few turn cycles, it starts to really add up the damage in a flying manner. These sorts of cards, they really start to pile on the damage, which is great. So I think Yawgmoth's version of cage removal and curse toad removal, disruptive flute and stuff, I think it is combat. We do try to take it seriously, as much of a joke combat is. But you know what? We've all been there. It's turn 7. The Alavir's just locked everyone out, and it's all that matters now is how much pressure, how quickly can we remove the Alavir.
Shot down. You're facing the War Pig, the Selesnya Pig of Doom for us. There is no.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Yashard.
Look, it's all fun and games until they're staring down a geezer with 12 damage plus a shield red and all this stuff piling on. So
there's always going to be bad matchups.
yeah, of course. So yeah, I'd say it's Curse Totem, Disrupt Flute, Cage. Drannith Magistrate is a massive problem. It's probably the bane of Yawgmoth's existence. Brews need to either pack a bit of kill spells for it.
Right.
My personal favorite is a Snuff Out. Or they need to, again, just lean into the player removal thing. Just keep swinging at the Drannith controller until they get the message. Either they lose or the Drannith, blocked. So, and look, it sucks, but that's just a part of it, right? And on the bright side, Cage, Curse Totem, Drannith, these cards, usually we're not the only one affected lately, right? Because Thrasios, Kinnan, these are cards that are also down in the mud down there with us. So, it's a bit parasitic of us to assume that they're going to deal with the problem, but if we're not winning, they're not winning. So, temporary alliances do get crafted. So,
Right.
and that's what it is, and that's mono black. It's a lot of talking. It's a lot of reading the meta and understanding that sometimes you have to work with people. And not that deals get made, but it's a lot of, hey, I'll take out this, so that we can play. There is a lot of people that panic when they see Yawgmoth, and explaining to them that no, I'm your ally until I'm not. It does go very far. I'm here to help me help you stop the other guy from winning. Don't remove Yawgmoth. I can take out. I can stop the Sisay. I can shrink it into oblivion and it can't shoot or anything. You know what I mean?
Let the good doctor heal you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Step into my clinic.
Yeah. One last weakness I can definitely say. People would look at Yawgmoth and say, "Oh, this is a grindy deck." It's not. We don't prefer to grind. We are a commander that doesn't have access to to counter spells or artifact removal or enchantment removal. On a long enough timeline, you do get shut out. They do figure themselves out and stabilize, and so it's not. We're not the fastest deck in the format, like a Rogsai, right? We're pretty fast. Don't get me wrong. Mono Black does get some tricks up their sleeve. Lake of the Dead gets really interesting. We have Songs of the Damned. Songs of the Damned is like a Dockside. It's our version of Dockside. Songs of the Damned is 1 black. Add black to your pool equal to the creatures in your bin, which you can imagine it's like +8. On a bad day in this brew. But it's we're fast, not as fast as Rogsai. We're fast, and we, just because we can grind doesn't mean we should grind. Is I think the point I'm trying to make.
Right.
So I would put that under a weakness. Yeah.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. You're not going to outvalue a lot of times some of these decks, and they can sit there with 10 cards in hand, and then when you try to do something, you breathe, they kill Yawgmoth. And
Yeah.
it can make things a little harder. For
Yeah.
sure.
but that's pretty much all the weaknesses I can think of, unless you guys can point out some obvious ones that I've sort of missed. But those are the glaring ones from a Yawgmoth
R.I.P.
point of view. Oh, rest in
Yeah,
peace.
the, this
Look,
is
I don't see
go
rest
ahead.
in peace. I don't see rest in peace. I think the problem with rest in peace is all the decks that want to run rest in peace are usually
Bad.
wanting to use the grave, or they're bad, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. There's those games where you're playing for boosters or something. There's no round timer, but you are playing for prizes. And in those moments, if you have an LGS that does that sort of thing, I get it. Sometimes there'll be that one guy, that stacks guy, and he happens to have, rest in peace. But yeah, I mean, look, if rest in peace happens, we do have a couple of answers beyond just that recent enchantment removal. I can't remember. The name's escaping me. The 3-mana instant enchantment removal.
I know what you're talking about from
Yeah,
Dustborn.
the new one. Yeah, Dustborn one. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not good enough for me to consider running it. So it's
No,
just
it's not.
out of sight, out
At
of
least
mind. Yeah, but
the way I look at it, you can't play towards your weaknesses. You got to play towards your strength because there's
Yeah,
always going to
sure.
be bad cards that are going to stop you from doing anything.
Yeah.
And you just got to think how prevalent they are. Now, someone once told me, like, oh, well, I think the worst thing that could happen to you is an Orcish Bowmaster or an Ocean Thief. And I'm like, no, because they're creatures.
They
Like
die immediately.
90% of our,
Yeah.
90% of Stack's pieces right now are creatures. The worst thing that could be is someone drops a Chains of Mephistopheles on you.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So,
but luckily,
Yuriko,
no one
once
plays
again,
chains these days, right? Like
Yeah,
chains
no
is
one
so
plays
rare. Like
chains.
rest in peace,
I don't think
Yuriko, the nightmare.
I don't
Well,
think in my
Yuriko doesn't even
entire
run anymore.
time
Yeah.
That's true.
playing, someone's resolved the chains. Maybe like one.
We can thank Wizards for printing so much card draw in all the colors now that it makes no sense for chains to be ran anywhere. If that makes sense. So yeah, they sort of fix that issue. But no, look, as far as oh god, I'm losing my train of thought. But as far as rest in peace is concerned, we have these two cards, right? Blast Zone and Engineered Explosives. These are known as our cage removals, right? We deal with cage with Engineered Explosives and Blast Zone, and they basically both read quite similarly. It's basically destroy all permanents of the CMC equal to how many counters are on them. Blast Zone comes in with a counter. Engineered Explosives comes in with a counter because you put a black into it. There is moments where you can grow the grow the Blast Zone. You can make it grow with its own activated ability, as well as put a other color into the Engineered Explosives off of like a Lotus Petal or a Diamond and that sort of thing. One of the treasures like Greedy Freebird or something.
Gemstone,
So you can actually get your gems. You can get your Blast Zone and your Engineered Explosives to get to 2 mana value, and destroying Rest in Pieces and Cursed Totems and even Gilded Drakes, Volatile Storm Drakes, that sort of thing, it can become quite. It is very possible. And look, like I said right at the start of the video, even you guys did it, even I did it just now. It's so overlooked, but you can proliferate. You can proliferate these cards and grow them by just discarding a card, pay 2 black. Yeah, it gets really interesting. So we do have answers. They're not great, but we have outs.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah, so do you have any tips you'd like to give the new players? So someone that's picking up this deck for the first time. We know it's pretty complex, but what would you say to get them up and running?
Well, look, like I always say to new players, look, there is decks out there that are very easy to pick up and do your own spin, run your own, brew. Oh, this brewer made a mistake here. Oh, actually, I do want to run Skull Clamp, and my advice is don't tweak it in any way. Play the primer list, play my list, play something super established. Weezer has a list that just top 16 in a 62-man tournament, for example. Play those lists as is. Really get your games in, 10, 20 games in, and then tweak from there. You'll have this deck is doing some stuff on an axis that's very strange. And with that, you have some very strange cuts, seemingly, but everything makes sense. There is some serious logic behind every single cut and add. And people that have been brewing them that are finding success, they've been at this for a very, very long time. A good 4 or 5 years nearly. So yeah, definitely recommend that. As for another tip that I can give, really just pay attention to Plan B. get your Undire and the other card that combos with it, another Undire or token generator. Focus on that as your main way to win. All the extra lines, the plan C type stuff, that can come later, but it can be a lot at the start. There is a lot of combos here. I did the math recently. It's like there's like 600 different ways to win with my current brew. It's very overwhelming. But refer back to the combo list as you play. It'll help help you not so much winning on the spot, but more like to learn because you pick it up as you go, and slowly these things become memorized. So, but yeah, have fun with it. It's interesting. But also keep in mind, try not to play this in anything that's like, I don't want to say high power, but high power casual, that real relaxed. 'Cause this really rubs people the wrong way. Even in a competitive setting, people do their best, but you do hear the inevitable, sigh and groan, because it's like a Bowmaster's Granith type thing in the command zone. No one wants to play any creatures. It's really cursed. It's really cursed. Yeah, yeah. But yeah, those are my 2 tips. 3 tips.
Okay. Well, we're almost wrapped up here. I guess I'll grab. You want to grab this one, Samurai? The Overlook.
Yeah, well, we've talked about a lot of the overlooked cards and underrated cards here, but what's some things that you kind of like? I want to do a little differently on this one. What are some cards that you should look for in your opening hand that normally signal that this is going to be successful for you, besides the obvious rare? Actually, you know what? Tell me even what the mana should look like in your opening hand.
Well, I always say I want to be winning on turn 3. That means I would prefer to make my land drop on turn 3. I know that we're going to be drawing a few cards before we get to that point, and so that means the magic number of lands that you'd like to see is about 2. Okay. The list, deliberately does run about 27 lands, 26, 27 lands. So when you do calculations, it works out to be the average hand has 2 lands in it. Everything's by design. So yeah, 2 lands, preferably a rock. You are going to want a rock. I mean,
Right.
if you're not able to get Yawgmoth out, then you're not winning, right? So you are looking for a rock in this case, or a ritual of some kind. The earlier you can get Yawgmoth out, the better. But do keep in mind, a Yawgmoth that comes out quick with nothing to do is an L. That is a loss. You do need to have effects happening, things to sack, things to get the ball rolling. There
Right.
is a very real snowball element to the commander. You need to make sure that you can start the very start of that snowball. You got to get it going, and that looks like, can I get Yawgmoth out, and will that Yawgmoth be relevant? In other words, will I have something to sack? If the answer is yes in both cases, that's a good hand. As far as combo pieces are concerned, do not care. You will come into a combo very, very easily. As an example, many Yawgmoth brews run 7 tutors at most. Like, I'm on 7 at the moment, but I've gone down to as low as 4 or 5. And the reason for that is, why would I tutor for something when I can just draw a few cards and win accidentally anyway? And so, a simple infestation sage, foundations, 1 black mana for a 1/1 that when it dies, create a 1/1. So you pay 1 black mana, draw 2 cards, and distribute 2 1/1 counters. Something as simple as that. Drawing a few cards, getting a trigger off of, a token generator. Oh, now I draw another card. I just drew 3 cards for 1 black mana. All of a sudden, oh, I have the win already. Why would I bother with tutors when draw a few cards, you win anyway?
Right.
We
Right.
do need to run tutors, though, obviously,
Right.
for blast zone, engineered explosives, like we discussed earlier. You do need outs, right, for some of these things, but in general, it is such a layered deck that you don't need to worry about combo pieces in your starting hand, is my point. Yeah, just get that Yawgmoth out, get something to sacrifice. Forsaken Miner, Ophiomancer, happy days. Ozox, you're laughing. Yeah.
There is a card I would like perhaps to that I am actually running in my tournament deck, which is Blue
Okay.
Farm. Ever since the Crypt, Dockside, and Lotus ban, I have been running Jeweled Amulet.
Yeah, Jeweled Amulet. It's like a mana battery of sorts with color.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
Great card. Great card. So generally speaking, the way that Yawgmoth wins is it sets up these loops that gives you, like we were talking about earlier, you draw your 30 cards, right?
mhm.
Based off how much life you have left. I always go with the worst. I'm a very conservative brewer and pilot. I say about 20. And so when you're drawing these 20 cards, you want to be able to, you will easily be able to win off 20 cards, but I'm under the assumption that when that happens, personally, I'm out of mana. And so everything that the deck runs, as far as ramp is concerned, rocks and rituals, almost always it's mana positive. And so there's a general rule of thumb that all your rocks and rituals need to, in those moments where you have one, they can generate a bunch of mana to then throw
Right,
out
right.
those remaining pieces, the blood artists and such, so that you can,
Yeah. I mean,
seal
that
the
definitely
deal.
makes sense. So the way I use it is, I use it as my 28th land, essentially.
Yep.
So
Yeah,
I mean, I
fair.
don't know. I don't know if this deck wants that effect. It could help with. So
Potentially.
the
Yeah.
card basically
We used to
says,
run it. We used to run
"Oh,
it, for
you used to be
example.
on it."
Yeah, but you got to remember too. There's two other ways that you can play it. And, like play pattern wise, a turn 1, turn 2 Yawgmoth, and then you start sacking things from there.
Right.
And then there's this other side of the coin where you don't do that. Yawgmoth's the last thing you do. You build. You play your turn 1 creature, you play your turn 2 combo piece, you play your turn 3 combo piece, and then Yawgmoth getting dropped literally seals the deal. That's your win con right there. You've already won. You've got all the pieces on board already, sort of thing. And so, almost always, there's never a spare mana to put into that battery. If that makes
I see.
sense.
You're wanting to
Ganeshaha.
curve
Yeah.
out. So okay.
Yeah.
So with
Yeah.
my reasoning for why I wanted my deck was different. So like I don't mind like result like so with the amulet I can go land amulet turn to Timna. Like I don't mind
Mm.
taking a turn off. I don't need to develop or like Ristic or something, right? But anyway, that's that is a bit of a tangent. I really like the
No,
card.
it's interesting. It's interesting. Look, on overlooked or underrated cards, there is one card in particular that I want to shout out, and it's something that, when you first look at it, it's like, oh yeah, okay, but when you really break it down, the card is broken. I have no other words for it other than broken. Lion's Eye Diamond.
Oh
Lion's Eye
yeah.
Diamond here is just Black Lotus. Because of the way the deck plays out, your hand size, it ebbs and flows. One moment you got 5 cards in hand, the next moment you got 1, and then you're back to 5, and then you're back to 1, and it's very 0 and then 4, and then LED is, and yeah, I can tell you why. It's because you're dropping all these creatures, and then you have no cards in hand, and then you're sacking the creatures, and you have 5 cards in hand, and then you're casting the creatures, and you have no cards in hand, and it rinse and repeat. So there's these moments where LED is literally just a Black Lotus. Definitely a Yawgmoth staple. If you don't have one, save up. Brilliant card. Can't recommend it enough.
There's really no replacement for it. I have
Yeah.
tried. It
Yeah.
is great in breach decks. It's great in black decks. It is great in every deck it's in. Get your Lion's Eye Diamond. This card used to be a $70 card, and I was holding off on buying it. Now it's like a $500 card. Get it. It's in German. Get it in German. It's $200 in German.
When it first came out, I heard horror stories from people that it was 50 cents, because why would I discard my hand for this, and people were ripping them up and putting them in the bin because they were rubbish, like as a joke to make their friends laugh. Yeah, it was, yeah. But yeah, it's pain, But yeah, look, I will say, there is a lot of innovation on the deck, a lot of stuff. You get some really interesting tools, like a simple Lake of the Dead can justify being monocolor. A simple, Winter Moon. It's like everyone else is stuck under a winter orb, and you're just like playing like nothing's changed. There is reasons to pick up a monocolor deck, I think, even if it's mono black. Really interesting stuff.
I don't see Lake in your lands. Is that under a ramp or something?
So Lake of the Dead's not in my current brew. It is a
Okay.
card that is. It asks that you run about 14, maybe 15 swamps. I've currently just gone under that. I can definitely foresee Lake going back end though over time, but it all comes down to Wizards. You know what non-basic lands we get, how the meta's looking. You know what I need to run and what I can get away with running, right? But my point is that Mono Black has a lot of tools, a lot of unique tools that warrant trying it out. The Crick players would understand. You know there is some unique things that Mono Black is doing.
Yeah.
Like Songs of the Damned, like I was saying earlier, it's just some very interesting tech. And my point is that there's a lot of room once you have got the experience, the game's under your belts, for brewing it in your own playstyle, running your own tech. You know, I was talking to a person the other day who said that they'd love to run Skull Clamp. Personally, not a fan. I think we got Skull Clamp in the command zone. I don't want to be paying 1 mana to draw cards. I
Right.
would like to draw them for free. But I understand it. You know, having a spit like you're saying with your mana battery. You know, it's having the spare mana floating around sometimes is nice to put into something. So there's a
Yeah.
lot of room for brewing. Mm.
So I noticed this list is not on the fetches, and
Mm.
obviously you don't actually need them, right? The fetches to me they do so much. They can like shuffle your library.
Yeah.
They thin your
Ooh.
deck. So like when you're
Can I take this one?
They
yeah
fuel
I
down.
got
Yeah. If I may, real quick, the number one reason to run fetches in Yawgmoth is to prevent land flooding. So
right.
late game, the less chance we have of drawing a land, the more happier we are. 100%, I get it. And I can tell you, and sorry, Sammy, I'll let you if you want to interject.
Oh, you go right ahead. That was what I was gonna say. I was like,
Got him.
you know
got him.
exactly. Me and you both have the same thought process. I was like, it's literally to stop you from land flooding. The reason why it's not in there right now is mostly because, in all honesty,
Yeah.
you'd rather spend your life drawing the cards, right? Like a lot of
Spot on.
times.
Spot on. That's what you're in my head. That's perfect. Yeah. So
Went through the same process.
yeah, but it's you're losing a life, right? To fetch, fair enough. But all we see that's one less card on the Nest of Scarabs that you're going to get, or one less card once you set up the Undying Loop. One less card you'll be drawing into. So you're not really thinning it out as far as the win con is concerned. Cutting
I
your
see.
nose off to spite your face. Yeah. So it's all a double-edged sword. Like for example, you know, we run the MDFC lands, Agadeem's Awakening, the reanimation one, as well as Boggart Trawler. Both because, you know, late game when we draw these, we'd like to be able to have alternatives to just being land flooded. If RNG decides that we're just going to draw a bunch of lands like that. Malakia Rebirth is mainly we cast it as a spell, but sometimes it's a land. You know, Felder Profane, same thing. So, yeah, we definitely don't want to run too many lands. Worth noting that in this brew, this is a very important thing that I think people do need to be aware of.
Yeah.
Bolus's Citadel is a 1-card win con. I know what that sounds like. Like, how is it a 1-card win con? The reason you run top with Bolus's Citadel is to get lands off the top repeatedly. Here, you run, as long as your creature count is higher than your land count, and it is way, way higher by default, any creature you sack takes the land off the top of your library. And so all of a sudden, your Citadel just spews out all the combo pieces and you win before even losing 10, 15 life. Really, really strong card here. Only reason we don't run it is because we'd rather just tutor up the other half of the combo that we have and just for 2 mana put the creature down and win. So fair enough. And another card that's a 1-card win con here. But look, Citadel does have its place, like I suppose Knowles, but Citadel has a place in that it's great when you have an empty board state. Good to put a win on the stack when you got nothing else going on. But so there is, again, it comes down to pilot preferences and stuff. But yeah, we do have a 1-card win con there. And we also have another 1-card win con in Mikaeus.
Yeah, my boy. He's also a cleric.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, it's Mikaeus the Unhollowed, yeah. So Mikaeus is essentially, it doesn't matter what you have on board, it just immediately turns 2 non-humans into Undyers. And that is a win as far as we're concerned. That says draw 30 cards, wipe the board clean.
Yes.
Yeah, and win from there. Yeah.
There is
and again,
a card...
Yeah, sorry, go on.
No,
I was just going to say that there's so much mana positive ramp
Yeah.
Especially zero drops as well, like your Mox Ambers, Chromoxes and stuff.
Right.
The whole brew is designed to win the moment you've dropped that Machias and drawn your 30. Yeah. And sorry, what were you saying?
Yeah, so there is a card I want to ask you about. So Necropotence. So I know it does exile, but it exiles as a
trigger.
trigger, which means it doesn't actually hard stop a lot of the combos in the deck. I get it's a non-creature spell, but it's 3 mana, which is the same cost as Nest of Scarabs, and it can draw a similar amount of cards. Is there a reason you guys are not wanting to be on Necro?
I can definitely see people being on Necro as an option. It does come down to I'm never tutoring for the Necro. If I can tutor for Necro, I'm just going to tutor for Nest of Scarabs.
And if you're not going to tutor for it, it's never going to be good because you have like 1,000,001 tutors. So that automatically should tell you where it should be in the deck, which is not.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's always going to be playable. It's always going to be playable. But here, I imagine it's always just going to be a value Necro at best. And the reason is for that is because at best, all we have is Emergent Zone. We don't have Final Fortune. We don't have Valley Flood Caller. We don't have Born. We don't have any of that. And so we got to, the Necro is at best just value. And trying to explain that to people when there is hundreds and hundreds of dollars on the line, they panic. They panic and they counterspell, and so it really is all about squeezing in what, a worse spell that resolves is better than something that's counterspelled.
Right.
And you got to remember too, mono black, like Crick, we can't protect it, and
the non-creature.
Yes, spot on. The non-creatures, we cannot protect it. If they have the Force of Will, they have the mana drain for our creatures, the pack negation, fair enough. Like, I'll see you next turn. I'll put another one attempt next turn. But yeah, it's we've really tried to have that mind shift change, mindset change. Really try and lean into the fact that Wizards just refuses to print, modern day counterspells that hit creatures. Capitalizing on that.
There's one last card I want to ask you about.
Sure.
The artifact that makes Vexing Bauble. So that's kind of like a counterspell protection for you for decks in general. That can sack itself. It can replace itself. You can get rid of it when you want to, so that it doesn't slow down your rocks. It's fetchable off Urza's Saga, so it's kind of like an uncounterable way to have a pseudo silence effect on your turn.
Yep.
Is that something you've considered?
It's not just something that I've considered. It's something that I've play tested. I think the card is brilliant. I personally, and look, I know that we're talking about those 12 Xerox creatures that are free, right? They cost no mana. The truth is, half of them, it's only 4 of them, or sorry, 5 of them, because Clown Car, that are truly free. There's all these options like Convoke and stuff where you can, as an option, put 1 mana into them. Like a Priest of Gix or a Shambling Ghast. These things cost mana. They just fully refund their mana is all. So there is a lot of room for a Vexing Bauble. And it's all about timing too. Vexing Bauble is often dropped quite early, and you've played all your 0-drop rocks by then anyway, so it's probably fine. When you combo off, you are simply sacrificing it after you've drawn your 30 cards anyway.
Yeah.
So no harm, no foul. But it does come down to slots. And it does come down to this mindset that if I'm not winning then, I'm winning next turn. And if I'm not winning then, I'm winning the turn after, and so on. Sense. And so, like I said, white has their silences, blue has their counterspells, red has their couple of counterspells in their spot, green has their, Allosaurus Shepherds and that sort of thing. Black doesn't have any of that. What black does have is, as an option, should the brewer choose to, brew something where you can put win attempt after win attempt after win attempt on the stack. And that's what Yawgmoth's currently going through. Is it optimal? I think so. It seems to be. We've been getting results lately. There's not too many people playing it, on the tournament scene. You can literally count them on one hand. So if anyone wants to try their hand, by all means, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. Just make sure to get the games in beforehand. Get the experience, learn the lines. It's a lot. It's a lot to take in. Yeah. Hopefully that answers your question.
It does. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, but no,
Mhm.
there's definitely on so many fronts things have been thought of. You know, innovation wise, I'm not going to sit here and say it's solved, but it's gotten to a point where people are confident enough to take it to tournaments. Myself, I've been Bruins Commander for 4 years, and I never took it seriously ever until just now. And just now, I've entered 2 tournaments, and both times I was very impressed. Very impressed. Like I would stake tournament entry fees and hundreds of dollars in prizes on this commander as it stands. I think it's because there is an element of Brewers advantage, but also, again, it just presents win attempt after win attempt. Like, good luck stopping it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah, we'll see. Time will tell. But I know one thing. We joke on the Yawgmoth Discord about how someone over at Wizards, the design team, is a Yawgmoth main because they just keep printing hot tech after hot tech specifically just for us. Every set we're getting so many new toys. Like, you look at the deck list, you'll see so many things from Foundations, Duskmourn, and it's kind of crazy how much new stuff we've gotten that is staple status for the commander.
There
It's
are a
kind
lot
of
of
beautiful.
cards that are like suspiciously cEDH targeted. Like that
Mm.
one white bird that when it enters you exile a spell and then spells from
Yeah,
exile cost 2 more. Yeah, that one's like they were looking at Underworld Breach with that one already.
yeah,
Stuff like that. It's like,
yeah, yeah. No, for sure, for sure.
cool.
um, yeah, but that's
Um
should
yeah,
be everything, I think.
I think so. So that brings us to anything else slash shout outs part of
Mm.
our
Well, well, look,
podcast.
I can tell you now, I am the owner of the Yawgmoth Discord, and the people there are just so pleasant. Everyone there is, we, we're almost like a team. It's like a team of underdogs, and everyone's super helpful. So please, like anyone who is interested, come our way, ask the silly questions. Everyone's so happy to help. Um, Fantastic mod team. The mod team work very hard. They are very dedicated to the player base. Grand, uh, just fantastic. And again, there is 2 people that I'd like to shout out in particular,
Yeah.
if that's okay. The
Yeah.
first one, his name's Coldwind, from the Yuriko Discord, actually. He's the one that got me onto this casual commander in 2020.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I kind of saw something in it, and I just wanted to shout out Colt because, yeah, rest is history after that suggestion. But the other person is his name is he's a everyone knows him. Every Discord has one. In the Yawgmoth Discord, his name's Hydra Vulgaris. His name's Hydra Vulgaris. He, like that one person on the Discord, that really talkative person that just comes up with so many silly ideas that you just dismiss. 95% of the time, it's just such a terrible suggestion. But every 20th suggestion is just an absolute diamond in the rough. You know, I want to shout out Hydra, but also every person like that in every Discord. Never stop brewing. Like, people shoot you down. People, you know, they dismiss your ideas or don't take you seriously. Like, never stop brewing because every 20th suggestion is a diamond, and it innovates on a level that I can't even put into words. So
Yeah.
shout out to the Hydras on all the Discords, the innovators.
Is there a shop nearby or anything you you want to give a shout out to?
Well, my local game store, Plenty of Games. We had a tournament last week. I played Yuriko. I topped the tournament, which is fantastic. Went home with the 350. So happy days. But yeah, brilliant card store. But yeah, no, I think it's just a beautiful time in cEDH at the moment. We saw our biggest tournament of all time the other day.
Foil? I was
Yeah,
there.
320 something, or what have
Yes.
you. Yeah, like, it's cEDH is just, in my 14 years playing, it has just grown and grown and grown. Seeing seeing Post Malone explain it, put it best.
Oh my
This
god.
this game of, like, chess crossed with poker. It's very complicated, and there's a reason you're only seeing adults playing it. Uh, the politicking, what it brings to the table. It's such an interesting game, and to see it constantly just flourishing is very beautiful. And it's all thanks to channels like this, putting content out there for the people to enjoy this game with us. So thank you. Shout out to you guys.
Thanks, man.
Absolutely.
There's one very last thing that we have. Samurai, you wanna take this one?
Oh no, because yes. Oh my gosh, I forget we do this because, in all honesty, it's been so long since we had anything that really registers on this for me.
Spicy
We have
Oh
scale?
my god.
Yeah, I've
the
seen it on previous
spicy
videos.
stuff,
Yeah.
and it's all been pretty mild, but I'll be honest, my friend, this seems muy caliente. There's not a lot like it. There's not a lot that does it. You have turned mono black into what, mostly we see, what is it, Naya decks do, which is creature sack lines. So it's like
Yeah.
you have turned the entire color pie, brother, to get to this. So what
My
do you
pleasure.
think? How spicy is this?
I think this is. I think it's at a surface level extremely spicy. But listening to our chat today, you probably recognize that a lot of it makes sense. You know, I had a friend once who he made Winota before Ian did, and he was crushing tables. And on CD, we played on Spell Table one time, right at the first couple of weeks, and people asked him to please change off of a casual commander. This was at the height of Winota's terror, that reign of terror. Remember that first, 6 months or so, how absurd it
Yeah.
was? Yeah, and he was told, please get that casual thing off the table. Please change commander. It reminds me of that. There's this casual commander, but it's just we got so much new stuff, and when you break it down, I don't think it's that spicy. And I think we're seeing tournament results now with it, slowly starting to, and I think that's the opposite of spicy. I think we're starting to get somewhere. I think it's getting out of this fringe stigma, which is interesting.
Well, spicy isn't a bad thing.
No, spicy is a good
There's
thing, but yeah, it's also, how do I say? It's spicy on a surface level. I'll say that. Yeah. Mm.
So, there was a deck that we had that actually did win a tournament. Our first episode, it was Kadena, and
Mm.
that was also it was very competitive, but it's also extremely spicy because it just played the game on such a different axis. It was essentially like you were playing Yu-Gi-Oh with trap cards with the morphs.
Mm.
And I think we gave it our highest. I don't remember, but I think we gave it our highest spice level because it was just so interesting. And personally, I think your deck deserves the Reaper as well. I know it's been around for a little bit, but this deck, I don't think we've had a deck on here that plays even remotely. Have we, Samurai? Is there even a deck that we've had on the show that does this? Really?
Okay, so I've been scrolling through our past videos because I was looking at this. I was like, this is so different. It's okay. So it comes close with Rakdos.
It
Yes,
does.
Um,
It does. Yes.
yes. That's true.
because we're
Yeah.
doing sack things, we're doing it at instant speed, we're accruing advantage engine. We're trying to do this. It does a little bit like Geralt, the flesh right, and then will help. There's a lot of these little things
Aristocrats.
that make
Yeah.
sense.
Mm.
But the thing it reminds me more of is Mono Black's answer to Nadu, where as long as we got creatures out, the storm keeps going.
Yep.
Yeah.
Spot on. Yep. I've
Yeah.
heard people call it mono black Tyam. I've heard aristocrats. I've seen people compare it to Joyra, the eggs aspect, and mono black Nadu, was a recent one that I got called. It's definitely playing on an axis that's it's just very unique. Very unique. I mean, look, I don't play cEDH for fun. I play to win.
Yeah.
I don't play Yawgmoth for fun. I play to win. I took it to tournaments. I staked money on it. I staked my time on it. I believe in it. I see something here. It has that thing that just over time it only gets better and better and better. And it comes down to the breakdown right at the start of the video that we did about what Yawgmoth has stapled onto it as a card. It just has the stuff that makes it only get better with time, not worse. So yeah, it's an exciting time. I think maybe it does deserve a Reaper, I suppose you could say.
Yeah? What do you think, Samurai?
I think so. I believe there are certain niches in Magic that have only been tapped into. The graveyard is much like artifacts, where it's always going to keep getting more degenerate and more broken as we go down. And Yawgmoth taking advantage of that has been better and better as it kept going. It started off, the deck was okay. We were like, Undying, cool, that's pretty neat. And we're like, but like we need to run these other card draw engines because we can't just keep running these 0-drops. And then it was like, oh, well, now we've got enchantments that say as long as we can play a 0-drop, we wipe the board, which Nessa Scarabs didn't really come out when Yawgmoth was out. It took like 1 month later, I think, for Ixalan. So it was like, oh, yeah, Hapatra, that's kind of busted with Yawgmoth. It's like, no, forget Hapatra. There's an enchantment that came out of Hapatra that's going to make this busted. And then we got what is it? The school one. We got the infestation, the little pests that now do the same thing. And it was just like, it just kept getting better and better. We got Bastion of Remembrance and Ikoria.
Yeah.
And then we get like all these creatures that now when they die, they make treasures and they're 1-drops. So now we even filter this mana in. We got Miner, which by the way is tier 1.
Yeah, it's absurd.
As far as creatures.
It's
like, I literally joked. I was like, like Not Like Us just came out, so I'd go like, play a Miner, and I'd play the Miner out, and my friends were like, we're done. I'm like, yeah, you guys are cooked. I'm literally gonna just, what's my mana at? That's how many creatures are dying, and that's how many cards I'm drawing. This is greed now.
There is that real rattlesnake aspect of it, like a couple of minor activations, a couple of neg 1/1s at instant speed. It's not very good, but because you've got 3 opponents, you know what I mean? But the thing is, do you want to be the guy to drop your Tymna first?
No.
Really?
No.
And it creates a very awkward situation where those activations go way further than you think they do. Not doing anything is better than doing something. It's like the old counterbalance thing, not revealing is more powerful than just revealing off the cuff. So it's Yawgmoth's like the same. It's inaction is an action. It's very interesting. But look, I think one final shout out on what you're saying though, Sammy. Let's shout out the Yawgmoth main over at Wizards.
Yeah,
He's printing all this stuff.
There's got to be someone at Wizard who's just like, okay, like this set we make nothing for Yawgmoth, but I'm going to design 3 cards in Thunder Junction that are going to go right into this deck, and no one's going to notice.
Yeah, look at 9 Lives Familiar, right? Pay 3 mana across 2 turn cycles, draw 9 cards.
And whoever was designing it, there's some of these cards, there's no reason for them to exist. And I was like, nah, that someone at Wizards definitely is a Yawgmoth main, because there's also not been a new Yawgmoth card. Think about it.
Yeah.
So they were like, no, perfection has already been completed.
We joke, but the truth is, I think Wizards is just exploring aspects of cards that happen to really synergize with what Yawgmoth is doing lately, and that's beautiful. I'm very excited to see not just where Yawgmoth is in a year's time, but in a couple of years' time, I think it's going to be very a lot more present than you currently are used to. Like everyone would have a game in with Yawgmoth out in the wild somewhere. Great stuff. It's just nice to know that there's alternatives to Crick. A lot of Crick pilots compare Yawgmoth to Crick, and it's like comparing Rogsai and TNT. You're just completely very different wavelengths.
Yeah, they are.
Not even remotely close. Yeah.
It's
very like comparing. Yeah.
They're both in black, but that's where the similarities stop.
Yeah. Keurig is more like, I'm going to resolve this big flashy spell and then try to win, like a Citadel, or there's a lot of things, right? Yawgmoth's more like, I'm going to play like a bunch of these random creatures, and then oops, I win.
Yeah, it's like a tie-am. It's like, I'm just going to play all this trash, and then oops, I win.
Right.
Oh, you stopped me. I guess I'll go for next turn.
Yeah.
Crick has a threshold life count too, which it goes like, I'm under 5 life. Crick is done. And Yawgmoth is like, am I at 5? Am I still alive? Am I above 1? Because I need to be above 1 life. That's the only number I need.
Yeah.
Because if I'm not, I die.
You have like 1, 2, 3. You have 6 drain outlets here.
Yeah.
And
just a
the
lot of
best one is if you have multiple out.
Yeah. When you have multiples out, this is what I was talking about earlier about the life total pressure. When you have multiples of these out and you're playing a XEROX creature for free and you're sacking it and then making a token off a token generator, sacking that, drawing a card, drawing a Xerox card, playing it, doing it again. Someone just lost like 10 life. And if you have the ones that hit all opponents at once, everyone just lost 10 life. And so I feel like in a few years' time, especially, there's going to be a real having. I mean, hell, I'd run about 14 blood art. No, not blood artists, but the ones that hit all opponents at once, like a Zulaport Cutthroat.
Yeah.
Like I would run like genuinely about 14 Zulaport Cutthroats if I could. So every starting hand has them as both a combo piece to outlet for the loop, but also just for extreme life total pressure. Like who doesn't like whittling down opponents' noses? You know what I mean?
What is
Yeah.
it? There's one in there that's like what is it? The artifact one that came out in what was it? Zendikar Rising, I think. Where it was if you have a cleric, it drains. And then you can tap 2 to sacrifice a creature to draw a card.
I'm drawing a blank on it now, but I know what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, I got it somewhere here. Yeah, no, there's a lot of drain outlets. There's a lot of cards that, you know, like I said, a lot of room for pilot tech, things you want to run. Relic Vial. There we go.
There we go.
Yeah, but you know, like the Xerox cards, like a Frogmite, for example. If you want to opt in for an artifact brew, running a Frogmite as another zero drop is interesting. You know, running if you want to play more aggro based, you know, a simple Spymaster's Vault as a land gets really interesting. Just take a player off the table. Yeah, there's just a lot of room for expression. But you know, you just want to get those games in, try it out, and then after that, you know, tweak as you see fit. Yeah.
Cool. Well, I think we have yogged as much as we can yog for today.
Yes.
I want to thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
It's my pleasure. I owe it to the community to sort of, you know, work with you guys and show what this command is all about. And not just the Yawgmoth community, but the entire cEDH community needs to know that it exists. Yeah, it's good. We'll see you out there.
No doubt that after this video is published, you will see more Yawgmoth pilots because I was actually at the boil and someone came up to me and they were playing one of the decks that I'm not going to say which one because I don't want to pick favorites, but it was one of the decks that legitimately was on our show, and he said he saw the video and he was playing the deck, and that's happened multiple times. So
okay.
No doubt
there you go.
You will get some more after this goes live.
Cool.
100%.
Yeah, and I suppose just one final one. I probably should shout out the Yuriko Discord, shouldn't I?
Yeah.
It's funny.
Yes.
It's funny because you know, my love for Yawgmoth came initially from my hatred from playing against it. You know, I believe I played against Colt and Colt win, and yeah, and playing against it, I realized how much I hated playing against Yawgmoth as a Yuriko pilot. And it's funny how hate can turn to love really quickly if you're on the other side of the fence, right? I think we saw a bit of that with Nadu, actually. But no, but
Yep.
yeah, no, it's been an absolute pleasure, guys. Thank you for having me on the show.
Cool, man. Well, that'll do it for this episode. Thanks so much. Remember to like and subscribe, and we will see you guys later.
Mm-hmm. Don't forget to hit that button. Bye.
Bye.